The Jeep Gladiator is not like any other mid-size pickup truck that's on sale today. Though it has a bed for carrying stuff, it's focused more for outdoor adventures rather than commuting to and from work. It's more rock crawler than mall crawler. For 2024, the Jeep Gladiator is only available with one engine, the 3.6-liter V6. The turbo diesel engine is no longer available for this model year. The V6 produces the same amount of power as it did when the Gladiator came to the market, 285 horsepower and 260 pound-feet of torque. While the competition has moved to turbocharged four-cylinder engines, the V6 has enough power to keep things entertaining. Sure, it doesn't have the low-end grunt of something like the Ford Ranger, but this engine has no problem getting the truck up to speed from a stop or merging onto a highway. However, this engine's major downfall is its thirst for the explosive juice. With the 8-speed automatic, it is officially rated for 13.7 liters per 100 kilometers in a city and 10.7 liters per 100 kilometers on a highway. During my week with the truck, I averaged 13.6 liters per 100 kilometers combined. Though that is between the rated figures, just barely, about half of my driving with the Gladiator was on highways. So I can only imagine how much worse the fuel consumption would have been if I had driven mostly in a city environment. Speaking of which, when you are driving on paved roads, the Jeep Gladiator Rubicon is not the best driving midsize truck on the market. Steering is light and lacking in feel, but the worst thing about its on-road performance is how it behaves at higher speeds. The front wheels have a tendency to point wherever they feel like it. As a result, you constantly have to provide little steering inputs, even when you're driving in a straight line. This gets really tiring on longer trips. Off the beaten path though, the Jeep Gladiator really shines. Unfortunately, I didn't have a whole lot of time to drive this Gladiator Rubicon off-roads, but I did get the chance to drive the Gladiator Mojave a few years ago off the beaten path, which is why you're seeing that footage right now. Now, of course, there are a few subtle differences between the Rubicon and the Mojave, but both of these trucks have 4x2, 4x4 auto or high, and 4x4 low with locking differentials in both axles. However, the axles can only be locked when the transfer case is in 4 low. This Gladiator Rubicon also has a disconnecting sway bar on the front axle for better wheel articulation when you're driving over larger boulders, or very uneven pavement. Additionally, the long wheelbase of the Gladiator may not make it quite as proficient off-roads as the shorter Wrangler when you're driving over certain obstacles. But unlike the Wrangler, the Gladiator comes with a 5-foot bed that is a little bit narrower than the box of something like the new Toyota Tacoma. It has one tie-down point at each corner along with movable cleats for more cargo tie-down points. This truck also came equipped with a tonneau cover for added security. That bed is rated to carry 1,200 pounds with the 8-speed automatic and 1,300 pounds with the 6-speed manual transmission. Maximum payload for the Gladiator is 1,725 pounds in the Sport S trim. When it comes to towing, this Rubicon is limited to 4,500 pounds, but 7,700 pounds in the Sport S trim with the max towing package. The ride of the Jeep Gladiator Rubicon is not too bad. It's not plush, but it's not unbearable either on a day-to-day basis. The shocks don't completely isolate the shunt of hitting a big pothole, but coupled with the large sidewall all-terrain tires, the ride is not jarry and you don't really need to swerve all that much to avoid hitting a big bump. But because of those all-terrain tires, it is really noisy on the inside. On highways, these produce the most amount of noise that intrudes into the cabin. You can also really hear this engine when you accelerate from a stop or put your foot down to overtake a slower moving vehicle. However, once you are at cruising speeds, the engine does get much quieter. In the front seats, I have an adequate amount of space at 6'4". Headroom is pretty good and you can have more if you remove the roof. The front two panels are held on by a few clamps, but the rear portion does require some tools to take it down. The doors can also be removed, but again, these two also require tools to do so. Behind my driving position, I could fit, but more legroom would have been nice. There is an indentation in the back of the driver's seat for tall adults like myself, so it won't feel too squished back there. Headroom is good, but just be aware of the roof-mounted speakers and crossbars. Should you go off-roading, you might end up knocking your head on those. If you lift up the seats, you will find a little bit of storage for small items, and if you pull down the rear seat backs, you will have a flat surface as well as a little bit more storage for smaller items as well. The 2024 Jeep Gladiator Rubicon with the 6-speed manual transmission starts at $71,240 Canadian. At the other end of the price spectrum, a fully loaded Rubicon X will cost you upwards of $95,000 Canadian or more, depending on how many options that you add onto it. Some of those options include leather upholstery, heated seats and heated steering wheel, forward-facing camera, keyless entry with push-button start and remote start, adaptive cruise control, rear parking sensors, dual-zone automatic climate control, and a bunch of auxiliary switches to name a few. New for 2024 is the 12.3-inch touchscreen that displays the latest Uconnect 5 infotainment system. The system has great new graphics and a new menu layout. It is customizable with different widgets being available on the home screen, and you can select your favorite apps and display them on one page, instead of endlessly scrolling through all of them. This infotainment system also allows the use of wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. Apart from the new touchscreen, the rest of the 2024 Gladiator's interior design remains unchanged. It is utilitarian with simple to understand and use controls. Everything is either a button or a knob, no touch-sensitive controls. And much like the inside, the exterior doesn't really see that many changes for 2024. The only update that it did receive is a slightly redesigned grille, but you probably wouldn't have noticed this if I hadn't said it, because it looks almost identical to the previous model years. As for that paint, it's called High Velocity. In the end, the Jeep Gladiator is not a mid-sized truck for everyone. There are more comfortable trucks such as the Ford Ranger. There are some with bigger beds such as the Nissan Frontier. And there are some with more efficient powertrains such as the Toyota Tacoma Hybrid. The Gladiator focuses on a niche part of the market. It is a truck with a decently sized bed and good towing capabilities, but it's one that excels more on rough roads rather than paved roads. If you'd like to know more about this 2024 Jeep Gladiator Rubicon, I have a more detailed written review of it over on my website. You can find that link in the video description or click on the pop-up banner in the top right corner. In the meantime, thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed the video, and see you in the next one.